Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Robert Baharian and this is Masters in Investing. They say life never stops teaching and we never stop learning. This show is my exploration with investors to both understand and unpack what is going on in markets right now and what this means for business and for investors. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave us an awesome review. Let's get into it. My guests today were Joseph and John of J2 Projects here in Melbourne. The guys are running a project management consulting firm helping manage residential, commercial and hotel developments here in Melbourne, Victoria, but also nationally as well. We talk about what inspires one to start their own business, how to invest in oneself to get the business off the ground whilst remaining patient, disciplined, and being brutally honest about the short term, but also being optimistic about the long term as well. How to then invest in your staff and your team whilst at the same time having a real North Star and a vision that everybody's bought into. We also talk about what Joseph and John are seeing from a development perspective. What is going on in commercial development? What is going on in office and hotel development at the moment? And what it looks like from a pre- and post-COVID world. I hope you enjoy my conversation today. Joseph Polimeni, John Babs. I've got the two boys, I've got the two J's from J2 Projects here with me. Boys, thank you for joining me today on Masters in Investing.
G'day, Rob. Thanks for having us, mate.
Excellent. Now, we spent the last 10 minutes just trying to compose ourselves and get through all the bloopers, but we're on now, we're live. What do you actually do? What does J2 Projects actually do?
Look, I'll kick it off, John. Mm-hmm. I think simplistically what we do is we're the Panadol for our clients on their developments, property developments. And it's very akin to an orchestra where you've got the various sections of instrumentals and whatnot, and we're the conductor trying to make sure that it makes beautiful music. So, you know, we are collating all the various kit parts, design team, various consultants.
And do you put them together, or do your clients come to you with their experts in a certain area, whether it's their architect, they want you to use their architect, or how does that work? Yeah,
look, it depends, really. So we've got scenarios where we've got clients who have already a consultant team on board, and they need financing in place, and the Department of the Credit Risk at Finance has said, well, look, you know, you need to mitigate your risk. Why don't you speak to J2 Projects to assist you with the time, cost, quality aspect?
Right. And then you come in and do what? We
come in and effectively manage the development on their behalf. So we manage those three elements. And it's important, really, because the financier won't release the funds until they get a level of comfort that the project is going relatively smoothly. So, you know, we're always presenting in front of, you know, financiers and whatnot. And
so do you almost sort of pitch the deal to them?
Pitch the deal, but we're also becoming the client, would you say, John?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, conversely, there's also projects where, you know, clients or prospective clients will come to us and, you know, they'll say, I've got a site, I've purchased a site, or I'm thinking of purchasing this site. We need to do some due diligence. We need to run a feasibility to see, obviously, if it stacks up. So in that case, we can come on and assist where, you know, we'll have a look at the site, the parameters. We may go to an architect, get some planning advice, get a scheme drawn up, and then we'll obviously run a feasibility and put some numbers to it. So, you know, we can come on from that early sort of stage, and we sort of call that originating a project.
Do you charge for that work?
Well, it depends. Like, you know, I think if it's a back of envelope sort of feasibility, high level, we wouldn't. And Conversely, if it's for an existing client, we wouldn't either. But, you know, if we do need to do some further work where,
Sure.
you know, we need to delve into, you know, the on-site conditions or in-ground conditions, we may have to even get, you know, some geotech done on the site, get some piling to understand what our in-ground conditions are like. Then potentially, obviously, we will charge. And obviously, there's also additional costs from other consultants that we may need to bring on board in order to obviously put a full-blown report together to assist.
And what type of projects are you guys doing? Is it just resi? Is it like what are you guys doing? What are you working on at the moment?
Yeah, so you know, we're you know, our business is about 3.5 years old. So when we started our business, it was just myself and Joseph in an office pretty much the size of the one that we're sitting in right now. And you know, we had the experience of the larger projects, but you know, starting out, we weren't going to be winning projects like that. So we were doing much smaller projects. You know, we were doing dual locks and 3 townhouses and 4 townhouses. Because as you know, Rob, when you're starting a business, it's just about, you know, getting the money through the door and boosting the cash flow, so that obviously you can then build a team and then be able to obviously target those larger projects. But now, obviously, 3.5 years in, you know, we've got a team of 9. And, you know, we're doing those larger projects, you know, so we'll look at, you know, your medium density townhouse projects, you know, 20 townhouses and up, multi-res, so anything from 10 apartments up to, you know, 80 to 100 apartments, hotel projects, so we've got a couple of hotel projects on the books at the moment, 3 actually. You know, we've done some industrial, we've done some commercial, some fit out, we're doing a commercial tower at the moment in South Yarra. So, you know, I guess it's a bit of everything.
What gives you the biggest kick? Like, what makes you really happy to do the work? I mean, I'm sure all of it is, but like, what's the thing that you could love to do every day?
I think for us, I mean, we're both very passionate about what we do, and we're hungry. So, I think it's all about, I think, having your own business, even work. I think it's about loving what you do. So, you know, waking up every morning and being happy, you know, going to your workplace. So we actually feel like it's not work, and I guess, with us, what we like to see is seeing, you know, whether it's we've put a scheme together on a site and then seeing it 2-3 years later built. Like, you know, seeing it from drawings and then being developed into a large tower. Like that's we get a kick out of that.
What hotels are you working on at the moment?
So we currently got one in construction at the moment, which is in West Melbourne. So that's the Courtyard by Marriott. That's the brand. Obviously, operator's Marriott. So we're looking to complete that probably in the next 6 to 9 months, opening Q1 next year. Got another one in Hawthorn, which I don't think we can disclose the name of that one yet. And there's actually another one in the Gold Coast, similar situation, very early phases, and that's in DA at the moment.
Yeah. And so you're 3.5 years in, and from the whispers that I get and I hear is that you guys are doing quite well. Why is that? What's happened that's allowed you to become so successful in what you do? You're starting to make a name for yourself as well, and it appears as though you're being able to pick up some of these larger projects where, you know, you're doing 3 years ago you're doing dual lock townhouses to building hotels that are managed by the Marriott.
Yeah.
Like how did that happen?
I think just being very clear on...
Clear on what?
It's just a no bullshit approach. So when we're pitching in front of clients, we create an instant rapport. I don't know what it is, but we're very good listeners. We pick up on their scenario, and we try and plug in the gap of what they're missing. And it's just providing that value add constantly. And if we can highlight that to them on the early onset, then we're up against the bigger guys, but it's just a no frills approach. And it's, you know, our branding, our whole sort of, you know, approach is just to provide clarity constantly. And that's what we instill with.
How important is brand in your line of work and in your business?
I think it's very important because, you know, when we're currently going through a rebrand at the moment, but, you know, when we're...
Is there going to be a J3?
Or potentially, no.
Maybe J2R.
No. It's but it's just. I think it's just we're now sort of identifying now that the business is becoming a little bit more sophisticated. The clients are becoming more sophisticated. The sector of what we're playing in is a little bit more different, and we've got to.
What's different?
It's the value of projects is a little bit higher. The complexity is a little bit higher. The consultant teams and whatnot. So we want to just make sure that we're.
And what's happening in that industry? Is it a requirement by bodies? Is it clients wanting to do more and push the boundaries even further than?
Look. I mean, just to answer your question about brand. I mean, what's important about brand is that look, when we think of brands like Tesla or with Apple, we even some other luxury car brands. You just think of quality, and you think, yep, solid. Open the door, close the door. It's got that solid nature to it, and that's what we're sort of trying to match and identify and say, okay, well, look, J2 Projects was this 3 years ago, but now we're a little bit more mature, becoming more sophisticated, and we can play against the bigger firms, but we haven't got a big team.
And I guess going back to your question about why us, why we're different, I think, myself and Joseph are both pretty, heavily involved in the projects. So we like to say, when we're pitching that, you'll get director involvement. We don't just, pick up the project and then, hand it over to a junior project manager to run.
Is that what normally happens in your game?
Oh, to some degree, but I think with us, we actually, we love what we do. We love projects. We still love going out to site, doing claim walks, doing site inspections, attending PCG meetings if you have to.
What's PCG meeting?
Project control group. So, where you've got you've got a meeting with your builder, your client, etc. Even if it's like we're going into a design meeting, we'll still, we go to design meetings. Although we've obviously got our project manager and assistant project manager running those, etc. We'll still go in there. And I guess, when we are pitching to new clients, I think they see, the passion and the love that we have for what we do. I guess, we're hard working as well. We've both been brought up in small business. My parents were in the fish and chip game for about 42 years. So, where my mates in primary school, they were on weekends riding their bikes around, I was in the fish and chip shop flipping burgers at the age of 8, right? So, although illegal, I was working at that age, right? And, I only literally finished up working in my parents' fish shop 3 years ago, which is when they retired and they sold it. So I was, right up into my late 30s, I was working, small business, that's obviously how it works. And conversely, obviously, Joseph's parents got a small business as well. So, we've been brought up in that sort of, I guess...
We've been raised that. Yeah. We've seen it. We've lived it.
Correct. So we've always had that business mindset.
It's just being, I think, seeing their ambitions, John, we just want to try and sort of be like them.
That's right. Exactly.
And that's where that ambition sort of is burning in our belly. And we're like, well, we've been provided with a lot of opportunity as, growing up. And we've seen how hard they work, and we want the same for our family now. So it's pretty gratifying, to be honest.
And so J2's been running now for 3.5 years. What were you guys doing before that?
So we're working for other firms. So we're working for a consulting firm before that.
So same line of work?
Same line of work. I was working for a developer. Then prior to that, we met at Melbourne Airport. And it was all client-side project management work. And when John sort of sat next to me...
So did you just bump into him at the airport? Or
No. He worked in the same... So John joined the company that I was working with at Melbourne Airport. And, back then it was 2012, I think it was, John. And
what was it about him that...
He sat down, Rob, and he honestly... at that time, when the hierarchy at the company we used to work for saw that enthusiasm and energy, They just were like wolves to sheep, and they said, well, how good's this? We'll just load this person up with X amount of projects, because at the time Melbourne Airport had multiple projects running, and they needed a lot of projects being managed. To which I turned to John and said, mate, you want to turn that enthusiasm right down. Just be careful, because they'll load you up. And we ended up sort of going for coffee and this and that, and we sort of really just clicked. You know, we're in the sort of same sort of mindset. Our wives were very similar, and we just sort of connected and understanding.
So then, what broke the camel's back for you to then move from being employed to then setting up your own company with, I presume, with nothing, just the two of you,
yep.
and what's up here, and what you know. What was it that made you say, do you know what, let's do it?
I think when troubleshooting scenarios and dealing with projects and dealing with various stakeholders, and having that sort of understanding and sensing of, okay, well, an issue is going to arise. How do we best sort of negotiate it? How do we get the best out of people? And how do we sort of bring everyone together and manage this project in a positive way? That occurred constantly throughout my projects that I delivered, and what and John's as well. And we just turned around to one another, and we were sitting down having a coffee at that Red Coffee Pot in Virgin Terminal it was, and we said, well, what about J2 projects? J2. John and Joseph.
That was in 2012.
It was. That's when we registered the company. And we had very little experience in the residential sector, but I think it was more so from a stakeholder management, that sort of side, we were pretty strong with it. We knew the protocol and processes and structure, what to do and manage teams and whatnot. But we realised pretty soon that, we needed a little bit more experience.
And then for people listening who are wanting to invest in themselves and invest in their own businesses, what did you guys do from 2012? J2's been for 3.5 years, so 2018.
Yep. End of 2017.
Yep. So there's 5 years there that the idea was born and that was sparked, and then presumably you were doing something during those 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, what were you guys doing? What helped you make J2 a success from the back end of 2017 and really hit the ground running?
Yeah. So I guess, so obviously we met, we thought about this whole idea of J2, etc. at the airport, and and then we're sort of thinking about it. We're putting a business plan together, and we're like, you know what, we actually haven't got much experience. Like, in resi commercial space, we only...
So you conceded that yourselves?
Well, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, prior to going client-side at the airport, we were both working for large builders. So I was at Balderstone and Joseph was at Multiplex. That was obviously straight out of uni. So, we moved up the ranks in the builder. We were sort of each there 5 years each, and then obviously going client-side. And we're like, we can start our own business, but we haven't got really a lot of experience, like with the whole development life cycle, with residential, commercial, etc. So we're sort of like... we can start, but I think we need to get that experience first, one, and two, we need to get our networks. So how do we do that? So, I left the airport probably in 2013 and then moved to a Tier 1 project management consulting firm. And, during that time was like 13 to 16 was obviously boomtown with all the big towers, a lot of money coming out of China.
Yeah.
We're selling 50 to 100 apartments a week in these large towers. So 6 months into that gig, there was a role going, and Joseph came across, and he also joined the same company,
right?
That we're both at, and we were there for a good 4.5, 5 years. And during that time, we learnt the whole development life cycle, right from town planning through to settling apartments.
We didn't realise the magnitude of the time. We didn't at the time.
We didn't.
And how were you able to keep focused and patient? Because what most people do is they come up with an idea and generally they want to execute it straight away. And you hear a lot of people and a lot of successful people talking about speed is important, how important speed is. 5 years is not, it's not quick. It's a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
How did you remain focused, patient and disciplined without then falling into the trap of, let's just quit the jobs, we've got a business name, we've got a logo and off we go?
I think it's ensuring that we've got the trapezium effect. So,
What's that?
So it's effectively, so before we take the leap, take the swing and take the jump, we've got something that we can grab onto that's solid. So whilst we're delivering projects, we're understanding what the good and what the bad items of running a business were. We're creating our network and building our network and building that well, digging that well. We didn't realise at the time when all these various sort of networks that we were creating and building would sort of assist us today. But it's ensuring that, I like this little snippet. What do you reckon about this, John? I like this. I like the way, I like this company. Eventually, like this company can do our branding or logo, or they're good architects. They're a good client. What do you think? So it was, it was understanding, okay, well, which firms can we partner up with? Which can it, help us when we're eventually starting our own business? So, it's creating that. So, and more importantly, we had to deliver projects. So that comes with a lot of credibility. So when you deliver projects from start to finish, then you can understand, okay, well, the whole life cycle of, okay, well, I've done this, I've done that. When you're talking to clients today, we still draw upon that experience. Well, we did that X amount of years, and it's about that wisdom that you can, or experience that you can pass on to the client. So I think that helped us in the end.
And I guess, the beautiful thing about our relationship is, although we're very similar, we're very different.
How are you different?
Well, I'm a risk taker and I've got no patience, whereas Joe's more measured. So, I was always, from 2012 to 2017, I probably told him over 50 times, are we going? What are we doing? When are we going to
How
start?
did you keep him grounded?
It was difficult at times, but I think it's just ensuring that let's deliver projects. Let's create the network. Just understand there's a vision. We're going to enact on that, but it's just ensuring that once we deliver, we've got that notch in our belt to say, hey, look, this is what we've done. And to this day, we always use one of John's notable projects in Docklands as, we've delivered that $230 odd million project on, in the Docklands. It was a mixed use development, hotel and residential. And if we were to take the jump, and conversely with me, if I were to take the jump earlier, I wouldn't be able to say that I was involved with X amount of boutique projects in and around the burbs in Melbourne. And I think by just delivering those projects, it created a lot of credibility for our business when we literally took the leap of faith. And when we're talking to clients, we still draw upon that experience to date.
I think we never would have started the business on our own. Like, I never would have taken the leap of faith on my own. And Joseph probably said the same thing. So I think it was either both of us together or nothing. Like we in our business, we've got our own roles as well. That we sort of, I'm more so the operational, BD front end sort of work. Feasibility work, whereas Joseph's more, the managing of the staff and also, delivering the projects. So, we complement each other. So
I don't think if you're a risk taker and have a short, I shouldn't say, no, not so much a short temper,
no, I don't
I don't know how you'll deal with staff if he's running staff.
Exactly.
Your fuse will burn pretty quickly, I reckon.
Correct.
So let's talk about that. I think, Joseph, it's important that when you talk about being brutally honest about the short term, but I think it's important that you remain optimistic about the long term, because the short term, 100% there's, and maybe keeping someone like John grounded and trying to maintain, some level of patience. You got to be brutally honest in the short term, and I think super optimistic about the long term. Can we talk about? So you've got the business up and running now. You nine staff now in a few years' time. How do you then inspire people? How do you inspire your team to buy into the North Star, if you like? Because no doubt everyone in your team has their own aspiration. No one's going to have precisely the same aspiration. And so one thing that I'm really curious about, how you then invest your time into your people, into your staff, because no doubt without them, you'll burn out. You can't do everything, right?
Yeah.
And so, how do you get the best out of your people? What do you do? And then, how do you also get everybody together? Because everyone's got their own aspirations, but how do you get everybody together to work towards that one North Star? Because everyone needs to go in the same direction, even though everyone's got their own drivers and their own personal goals. Yeah. How do you build that jigsaw puzzle together to create this really colourful vision that J2 want to head toward? And everyone's bought into the damn thing. Yeah. It's not like you both have shoved this thing down their throat. Yeah. Everyone's bought in. Yeah. And
look, it is tough. It's a little bit tough at times. But when we're interviewing, or when we started out, when we were interviewing, for
do you do all that yourself, or you
do? Yeah, I do. But it's hard because we are still a new business. We're still sort of considered a startup, and there's positives and negatives about that. But the positive is that we are not bound to any structure. We're not bound to any sort of way of doing things, and I think that sort of flexibility gives the team a lot of scope to create their own sort of aftershave or perfume and how they want to do it. And constantly we remind them that, you're in charge of a project that's worth X amount of millions of dollars. You're in charge of a team. You've got to report to a client, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where you can learn various things and you can deliver.
So you let them go?
Totally.
What controls do you put in place? I always think about it like bumper bowling.
Yeah.
Like, we'll put the bumpers on, and you can go as far left as you want or far right as you want.
Yeah, look, it's important that we're always setting the expectation, both John and I, saying, hey, listen, if you're going to deliver this, I'll hand the keys over, but just don't scratch it. You're going to make mistakes. That's good, but you've got to learn from them. And when we're in our, mid to late 20s, we weren't sort of in charge with the amount of projects or, these projects that our guys are delivering. And we're like, well, it's a great opportunity. So, here's rope, here's leeway, go for it. We're here. If you want our advice, we're here. But I want you to sort of own it, make mistakes, not too many, but make mistakes, learn from them. And I think it's ensuring that, when you do provide that level of trust to them, that, that's reciprocated. Because you can't micromanage, and we've seen that in our previous lives.
Where you've been micromanaged, maybe.
And it's not good. And it's not good. It's not good because you're second guessing everything. Do I? Don't I? Type of thing. Do I call this person? Do I call the client? This, that.
And it's no one learns when they get micromanaged, right? Like we're problem solvers. That's what we are. And we don't profess to know everything, which we don't. We're learning every day. But, we always say to our staff, we're always open. So if you need a hand with anything, come and talk to us, or talk to a couple of our senior members of staff who, got obviously, years experience similar to us, worked in maybe various other sectors in different capacities, who may assist, right? We're a collaborative sort of office. But, we always say, if you're going to come to us with a problem, give us 5 solutions as well. Like, what do you think? Don't just come and ask us for the answer. Think about what the solution is. Yeah. Come to us with those solutions, and then we'll tell you what's the right direction and how to tackle it.
And I think we're always telling them, look, if this was your money, or if this was your house, what would you do? How would you react? And I think when you do try and sort of ingrain that in their head that it's their own project, if it's their money, what would they do? Then they've got a different mindset.
How do you instill the J2 way of things in your people? Because you said before that it's the Tesla, it's the open the door, shut the door.
Yep.
How does everyone believe that, and how does everyone buy into that? I'll say story, but don't take it the way I'm saying it. But how does everyone buy into that?
So it's by the way we carry ourselves. It's presenting. It's by the way we look. By the way
You're looking good today, by the way.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. But it's just how. So if we're representing millions of dollars for our client to deliver this project, you want to make sure that you look and feel the part.
Why is that important? Why is how you look important?
Because it's
confidence for who?
Totally. Yeah.
Yourself.
Why do you need to dress a certain way to feel confident?
Well, why do you wear a shirt and jacket with a nice little handkerchief?
I'm not professing to know what the answer is. I'm curious to see what your opinion.
I think it's just you feel a certain way. It's like putting on your Superman.
But do you think you can feel that way without, a materialistic thing? Like, I'm wearing this jacket today. This is one of my favourite jackets. And I feel good in it. Why is that?
Look, I don't know what it is, but it's just our Superman sort of outfit. And, constantly throughout the pandemic last year when we were in lockdown, we were working from home, but John and I were always wearing a shirt.
Were you?
Sure. The odd moccasins now and again, but it's always, you're in that mode, okay, I'm here to work, although it's from home. I'm here to manage a project. I've got to deliver upon my client. We've got to provide service and constantly provide value. And I think it's important. How do you instill that into our clients, into our staff? I think it's just by them being near us, coming into the meetings, listening. Listening is really important. Observing of how we do it, how we interact with our clients, our consultant teams. They understand how we deliver and how we sort of, gain that trust with our clients. So,
do you find your staff start to mimic what you do?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've seen that, haven't we?
Yeah,
it's pretty gratifying as well.
Good.
Why is it gratifying?
Because you never think that because when they'd come in the door, we had a couple of staff come in the door, little to none experience, just graduated from uni, and now some of them have completed projects, some of them have managed to execute contracts with builders and clients and
on their own.
And you look at it and you think, wow, they've look at them, they're growing up, they're becoming mature, they're understanding, they're observing, they're listening. So it is gratifying.
So do you then, there's this question that people generally ask, or topic that people talk about is, you hire for skill, not attitude. No, you got to hire for attitude, not skill. Like, do you guys have a point of view on that or not?
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, you obviously got selection criteria when, people are coming in for an interview. And, our number one always is company culture. That's the first thing we'll look at because, if someone's coming in to interview for a PM role or a senior PM or a DM role, they're going to have the experience. They're going to have come from a background where they've worked on, large projects for various tier 1 or tier 2 firms, right? So really for us is this person a good fit for our company? That's number one. And usually we can tell in the first 5 to 10 minutes about their attitude and whether we think they're going to fit in with our team. Because as you can have, if someone comes into the team that doesn't fit in, it can be a disaster. So, that's number one for us always. So.
And how do you cut an interview short if you know in the first 5 minutes?
Joseph knows how to do that. He usually does that.
I don't know. You can just sense it.
He's done it before.
I know when you know. Yeah. How do you wrap it up?
When they start sort of doing the old head wobbling and me, I type of thing, and I haven't done that research on our company and what we're all about, then I can pretty quickly pick up that you're not for us. And it's ensuring that I get I don't know what it is, but I can just sense it with the second brain.
It is interesting. There's the gut feel that a lot of people typically haven't placed a lot of value on.
Yeah,
but I think it's really important. That noise that you're hearing now is jackhammers on site.
It is.
The equipment has arrived.
Yep, it is.
And so where are we? West Melbourne?
We're in West Melbourne, one of
on
our
site,
hotel projects.
on the hotel projects. And the workers have arrived. They're late this morning.
That's all right.
So can we talk... So we talk about the business, we talk about staff. One thing we didn't talk about, or maybe I didn't get really, was how do you get everyone buying in on the vision?
So...
Like what do you do to get...
Yeah, but I think it's by constant... So we're a team. We're a couple of floors above you here, but we're a team, and it's always constantly reminding of, hey, this is where the company's heading. This is not our end goal, but this is what we're wanting to start to get into. And it's always constantly reminding them that, hey, look, this is part of your learnings. This is part of our growth, and eventually, in a couple of years' time, J2 want to start doing our own developments. So it's really ensuring that we're, reminding them that this is not the be-all and end-all. This is just a learning. This is part of the process. This is a journey. And how do we get the buy-in? Well, they're getting, our team are getting exposed to a lot of different and interesting projects that they wouldn't, we believe, in other firms. So we give them opportunity that they wouldn't have gotten anywhere else.
And I think it's important that what we say we're going to do, we do it.
Yeah.
Right? We're targeting this project, or we're targeting these big projects, and then, being able to, commit to that and get on projects of that size. But, a lot of our staff have been with us, the majority have probably been with us for just over 2 years, probably, 2 to 3 years. So since we've started, and a lot of them have been with us and seen the growth. Yeah. So, they've been with us in a little, tiny office to obviously a larger office, and now we're looking for a new office again.
And that'd be enjoyable for them to be able to see.
100%. Yeah. And every time, we're in a new project or a larger project, you can see they're excited and they can see the future. And so I think that's how they're buying into what we're trying to do. And by doing that, we're giving them better opportunities as well to work on larger projects, being exposed to that. So I think that excites them.
I'm really curious about a couple of things. One is I read, and you guys may or may not know, but there's a project down on Collins Street at the moment. I don't know who's developing it, but maybe not specifically that project, but more conceptually, the way buildings are now being designed are very much taking into a post-COVID world, whatever that means, touchless this, touchless that. What's going on? What are you guys seeing as you're starting to as you're coordinating and managing projects, and whatever's coming through the pipeline now? Because consumers and people wouldn't see a lot of this stuff. You'd be seeing it firsthand, right? What are you seeing that is very different to what was coming through and across your desks 12 months ago?
I think to give you an example, our hotel project, we were even in the bathroom and soap dispensers and whatnot. That's all reverted to touchless. So what does that mean? Well, that means additional costs. That means additional time to review and understand what that means for the design. But from a macro perspective, from a commercial office point of view, we're not seeing many of those type of developments that we saw 18 months ago come through, and come through from a planning perspective. So from an office point of view, that's sort of taken a step back.
Yeah. So that's really quietened off.
Yeah, it has a little bit.
It has, but I think probably the next 6 to 12 months, I think there's going to be a bit of a change in that office space in terms of where you've got those large floor plates, 1,000, 2,000 square metre floor plates. I think they'll actually start reverting back to what we were doing 10 years ago with all the strata office. Because obviously, there's a lot of larger companies out there where they're reverting to 50% of the staff working from home, 50%, and then obviously doing that sort of roster on and off sort of system. So and in saying that, they're going to need less office space now. So I think it's going to go back to those smaller office spaces. So I mean, it's yet to be seen, but I think that's probably what will happen in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. And I actually had the same example as you, which was the hotel, touchless. So we're actually thinking the same thing. Yeah. But a lot of all our other projects are they're either in construction or in planning. So we sort of haven't seen sort of in that design sort of sense yet. But we do have our office project in South Yarra, which is still in planning. So I mean,
how big is that project?
So that's 17 levels.
19
levels.
Right.
19 levels, but smaller floor plates. So they'll be.
So was that office?
Yeah. Office,
right.
So, it's a little postage stamp site in South Yarra, so they're going to be 330 square metre floor plates. So, I think that sort of product, I think that stuff will fly out the door. Because, smaller companies like ours, that's the sort of space, and, if you've got your own self-contained office, obviously you always prefer that over sharing a floor with someone else.
But from a residential sense though, Rob, there's larger floor plates, larger apartments, and they are accommodating additional amenity within the apartments. In other words, you're going to have a larger study area. You're going to have, facilities like gyms, more so in apartments. You're going to have...
and we're not going to see that in commercial?
you're not going. I don't believe that's going to. I think that's going to take a little bit of a slower pathway than what we're seeing from a residential point of view. You know, we're seeing a lot of developments in the burbs now, in a sort of
Sure.
you know, a lot of subdivision, a lot of townhouses. So that's more and more prevalent.
And why do you think that is?
Well, from COVID, people have realised that they can work anywhere to a certain extent. So corporates are saying, well, you know, we're decreasing our office space. We're happy for you to work 3 days or 4 days from home. And people are taking the opportunity to say, well, I'd rather live out, you know, in a comfortable area and then travel to the
Not be
city.
geared up to the eyeballs, have a backyard.
Yeah, have a backyard.
And how do you feel about that as an employer? You talk about a strong team culture. You
Yep.
talk about, you know, turn around to the guy next to you or girl next to you and have a
Yep.
chat about it. How do you feel about this? People want to work from home, and how do you build
Yeah.
that culture and that connection,
Yeah.
a genuine connection when you sit down across a table with somebody?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to, I believe, create that connection. Both John and I, we were sort of, you know, September, October of last year, in August, we were sort of coming in a couple of days a week into the office and working from there because it's just our industry's, you know, it requires a lot of turning around, looking at plans, pinpointing, highlighting, troubleshooting details, looking at programs, budgets, etc. And it's just, you know, it's more collaborative. Other industries are, you know, IT, for instance, not sure.
Sure.
But, you know, you can work from home, you know, but it's a little bit different.
I mean, all our staff was chomping at the bit to get back.
Yeah.
Like everyone wanted to get back, and you know, we're a small family. You know, like we see our staff more than we see our own families, right?
100%. Yeah.
And you'd obviously agree to that. So you know, and they were all they were wanting to come back last year, but obviously, you know, given the circumstances, we couldn't do that. But yeah.
And so talk about office, talk about residential. I'm curious to know, are people are obviously doing developments, otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, you wouldn't be flat out as you are. Because a lot of people that I've talked to and headlines that you read is things have slowed down, everything's fallen off the cliff and this, that and the other. Talking to the MD of Metricon Homes the other day, they're talking about hitting record annual sales and builds of houses. And so if you listen to the headlines, even last year and even this year, the headlines don't really match, or the predictions don't really match what's happening on the ground, right?
Not at all.
And so I'm curious to understand from your client perspective, what's going on, what's happening in the market? Are people developing? What are they developing? You know, you talk about bigger floor space in resi, less floor space in commercial. Like, can you just give us some insight into what you guys are seeing, because you're seeing it before it goes to market?
Yeah, and I think fundamentally we can't travel overseas.
That's right.
Yet.
So what does that mean for the population? We're getting a lot of stimulus from federal and state governments. Where from a financing home loan perspective, you know, the interest rates are all-time low, and you know, we're seeing Melbourne now has reached its highest price point of $1 million just recently.
Yep. But that's bullshit. What does that even mean?
So what that means is that there's a lot of buyers now, a lot of people who are cash rich, who are
but I mean the median price hitting $1 million. What?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Well, it does, because you know that's from a suburbs point of view.
But is that an Australian statistic?
That's a Victorian.
That's a Victorian statistic.
Correct.
But that statistic takes into account the $10 million house in Hawthorn, the one bedroom.
Oh, yes and no.
Yes and no.
I mean,
There's
there
an
were some
aggregate
suburbs where there was more than like 20 or whatever. I don't know what the point is. I think it's like 40 or 50. I think something like that. So there were a couple of suburbs that were obviously under that, but there were probably the majority were over like whatever 50 sales in that suburb,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, I guess it just gives, there's more confidence. It just puts the confidence back in the market, right?
People are spending. There's an enormous amount of cash that they're sort of reserving based on the 1 in 100 year event that we experienced last year, and now they're wanting to either buy an investment or move out of the existing home and buy in a different area.
And I think, what we're seeing a lot of is a lot of the downsizer stuff now, owner-occupiers, so larger apartments in those, affluent suburbs, where you've got, elderly people, their kids have left home and, now they want to move into an apartment, but, you're talking 300 square metre apartments, so it's pretty much like their home and they can customise things, etc. So we're seeing more of that. But with us, we don't like to pigeonhole ourselves into a certain sector. We like to sort of, sprawl out and diversify. Last year we got our accreditation, so we got all our quality OH&S and environmental accreditation so that we can start pitching for government work. Because we're realising, there's a lot of stimulus, federal and state governments, so we're like, let's try and tap into that. So we're working on that. So hopefully we can convert a few projects.
And what that means is, that we want to try and sort of understand, people aren't travelling, they're moving around, they're investing in our own country. Mm-hmm. So that means there's going to be more and more developments from either up north or various areas of Melbourne or
So you're
Sydney.
confident that the whole development concept will continue. It's just going to evolve slightly differently to what it was.
Yeah.
But people are going to continue to build, continue to develop, and people are going to continue to buy.
Yeah.
One of the things I just wrote down, Joseph, as you were speaking, you were talking about a number of things, government stimulus, low interest rates and things like that. So I sort of categorise that as driving forces to support this particular industry. What do you think are the primary driving forces over and above the government stimulus and the interest rates? And then what do you think the biggest risks are at the moment? Because all those driving forces create pockets of risks somewhere else, right? And who knows what they are and when they're going to pop, but they certainly do. So I'm curious from your perspective, when you start to look at these things, do feasibility and all the things that you do before you take on a project, what are the driving forces and what are the risks that you guys are seeing right now?
I think the driving forces from a development sense, as an example, if we were to do a boutique development in a certain area, what are the driving forces that are going to improve that development from a sellable perspective is the amenity around it. We're seeing a lot of stimulus from a government point of view that, whether it be train or
So sort of infrastructure
works. Yeah. So that there at schools. So there's a lot of benefits of that developers are seeing that they want to do a development around that sort of that infrastructure.
So if the government starts targeting a particular area,
you're
saying naturally what you find is though as developers are following that. I guess where they say where there's smoke there's fire.
Yeah.
They follow that. And they start to develop there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
But I think infrastructure is a driving force and a risk.
Yeah, how so?
If you're creating a new suburb, or you've got a suburb which has now got multiple apartment developments, you're going to obviously have more people living in that area. And if you haven't got the infrastructure to support that, obviously that's going to be a problem, right? So, that's not only here. That's obviously in other states as well. Like where, for example, Brisbane. They're pitching to host the 2032 Olympics, and it looks like they're probably going to get that. That's going to get announced, I think, in July. So, you can't think of any other host city in the world apart from a city in Australia, especially with COVID, etc., that can probably cope with, obviously hosting the Olympics. So I think they'll get that. But they're gonna have those issues as well. And not only the Olympics, but Queensland, there's a lot of migration up there now due to COVID.
That's right.
More holiday makers up there as well. So
they're coming from Victoria and New South Wales.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they're going to have issues as well with infrastructure. But they're obviously putting things in place at the moment to obviously fix that. I think they've got a tunnel project in Brizzy now as well that they're working on. And I think the other risk as well, Joe, is probably construction costs.
Oh, totally.
What's going on with that? Well, when I was talking to Ross from Metricon, he was saying that and my question was, is the cost of construction actually going up? Because you look at data, it doesn't suggest over long periods of time that's been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
But he's saying it's just literally blowing out.
Yeah.
You can't get timber.
No.
Labour's costing you a truckload more.
Yeah.
And it's actually, when you talk about construction, it's not only the cost, it's not only the products to build the damn thing, but it's the people, it's the surveyors.
Totally.
It's,
That's right.
Totally. It's that domino effect.
Yeah, and you know what we're seeing now. I mean, another example is that what we were sort of banking on our hotel project, we were looking to procure some of the materials over in China.
Right.
And, you know, you can get a lot of efficiencies from doing that. But builders are now saying, well, we can't now because there's a long lead time. So, in other words, the program will be blown out. It's going to be a little bit more costly because there's tariffs that have been introduced. So we're going to have to revert to a local supplier and installer. And that increases the costs on projects quite considerably. And we're going to see more and more of that type of thing, but more so from a sand and cement, concrete. You know, these things are you know, they're a high sort of, you know, they're a high demand commodity.
But do they have the product? Do they have stock?
Where
here in Australia?
Oh, they do, but it's you know, there's a lot of upcoming projects that are sucking that up. You know, case in point, the tunnel, Metro Tunnel. You know, the amount of concrete and reinforcement steel that is being absorbed by that project is incredible.
And that's having a flow-on effect to everybody else that's
right,
doing
it. Exactly, lead times, etc. You know, pushes projects out. You know, obviously then prelims end up increasing because obviously, you know, builders going to be out on site for longer. So, you know, we're starting to see that.
Does that impact the feasibility of a project to make it either go ahead or not go ahead when you've got new projects now?
It does, but we factor in a line item that has cost escalation to it.
Right.
Generally, it's, you know, 2 to 3.5% to factor that in. And, you know, in contracts you have a rise and fall. So, you know, if things increase, labour, material, you can accommodate for that. But, yeah, that is a factor. That's certainly a risk.
And so if we, one final question I have for you guys is, if we're 12 months down track from where we are today, knowing what you know now, what does the landscape look like in development?
I mean, I think we're quite positive. We think it's going to. I mean, I think with Melbourne, I think it's sort of just going to be sort of in this cruise sort of control. That's why, you know, we're looking elsewhere at the moment. Like, you know, we're looking up north with projects up in Queensland. So, you know, we've been travelling up there obviously every 2-3 weeks, trying to work around obviously all the lockdowns and permit system, etc. But, you know, there's plenty of opportunity up there. So, you know, we're hoping to, you know, pick up some projects up there, and, you know, so that's where we're looking. And obviously here locally, you know, we're looking more at the government type projects. And obviously just continuing doing what we're doing here, you know, just, you know, servicing our existing client base, trying to get repeat projects from them, and I guess just, you know, providing a good service. So,
Joseph, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, same opinion of that, but I think it's more so adopting, hopefully within the 12 months, federal government, state governments can you know, adopt a system where we can start sort of bringing in the international students back into the sector, into our country. You know, that international student sector provides a lot of stimulus for our company, but also for our country. So it's ensuring that the universities and all that, and all these international students, you know, from a cafe perspective, and the work arrangement, the nuclear that happens as a result of these students arriving, that's certainly one area that we need to start focusing on, because, you know, we're finding even overseas investment is another thing as well, John, that we're seeing.
Is that coming back?
Sort of, not really. It is slowly coming back, but it's you know, the amount of red tape and whatnot that has been implemented And plus, it's pretty. We're not seeing much inquiry from the overseas market. So hopefully that improves. But it's all. We're a lucky country here, though, Rob. In saying that, we're blessed to be here. So
I think, politicians were getting hammered 6 months ago. And here we are now, and it's difficult to see. Pop your head over the fence and look out into the distance when you're in and amongst it.
That's right.
But we sort of sit here now. We're in town right now. You don't have to wear masks too often. But you're reading,
jackhammers outside.
Jackhammers outside. So government is spending money, which is good. But then you look overseas, and you've got issues still going on.
That's right.
With COVID, and people talked about, and Scott Keck said this, I never forget, people talk about no one wanting to travel, but what it appears is more people want to now come to Australia.
Exactly.
Even more so from before, and it's sort of like the same story to some extent, the classic lucky country from 5 years, that we've been talking about for the last 5 years, but it kind of adds to that. The less density we have compared to a London and New York, for example, there is education's obviously really important. I think governments know that. I think it's not a secret that immigration and migration is a big boost for our economy. So I don't disagree with you. I think for all those reasons, I think it's going to take time.
Yeah, it is.
But it sounds like you guys are pretty optimistic about where we're at now, what you're seeing. And people that I speak with, most people are pretty optimistic, and we are seeing that in a lot of the data and statistics that are coming through as well. Inevitably, what happens when people get too optimistic is that people get too optimistic, and things start to blow out, and we push the envelope a little bit, and
that's right.
And then there's a little blow up, and then we kind of start again. So. No, boys, look, thank you so much for today. I think there's more questions I have about the insights that you're getting, but maybe we'll take that another time. But thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
No
Rob.
problem. Thanks, Rob.
for having
Cheers,
us.
mate.